Montana Territory, 1883. The winter wind howled across the snow-dusted plains like a lonesome wolf crying for its mate. And in the small town of Copper Ridge, there lived a man who understood that loneliness all too well. His name was James William Blackwood, 38 years old, owner of the most prosperous cattle ranch in 3 counties, a man who had everything, except the one thing his heart truly desired. Some folks said he was too particular. Others whispered he was married to his work. But the truth, James Blackwood had simply given up on love. After all, what woman would want a man who smelled of cattle and leather, whose hands were rough from hard labor, whose face bore the scars of a life lived under the harsh Montana sun? But on a cold February morning, something changed. A letter appeared, left on his ranch gate, tied with a simple piece of ribbon. No signature, just beautiful words that spoke directly to his weary soul. This is the story of how the most unexpected person can become the answer to prayers we were too afraid to speak aloud. This is the story of how love has perfect vision, even when we are blind to it. This is the story of the rancher's secret Valentine. Before we begin this journey together, if you love stories of hope, redemption, and second chances set in the Old West, stories that remind us it's never too late for love, then welcome home, friend. Hit that subscribe button right now and ring the bell so you never miss a tale from the frontier of the heart. And if this story touches you the way I hope it will, leave a like to help others discover it too. Now, settle in, pour yourself some coffee, and let me tell you about James Blackwood and the woman who saw him when he couldn't see himself. Let's begin. February 3rd, 1883. The morning started like any other for James Blackwood. Up before dawn, coffee so strong it could wake the dead. Then out to check on his cattle before the sun even thought about rising. The Blackwood Ranch sprawled across 2,000 acres of Montana Territory. James had built it from nothing. 15 years of back-breaking work, winters that froze men solid, summers that baked the earth to dust. He'd survived it all. But at 38 years old, as he rode back toward his ranch house that morning, James felt every one of those years weighing on him. That's when he saw it, tied to his gate with a pale blue ribbon that fluttered in the cold wind. A letter. James dismounted slowly. His breath made clouds in the frozen air. With calloused fingers, he untied the ribbon and unfolded the paper. The handwriting was elegant, careful, the kind of penmanship that took time, that took thought. And it read, "Dear Mr. Blackwood, you don't know me, but I know you. I see you every day, though you never see me. I watch you ride past my window each morning, your shoulders straight despite the weight you carry. I see the kindness in how you touch your horse's neck, the gentleness in your hands, though the world thinks them rough. I see a man who is good, who is worthy, who deserves to know that someone notices, someone cares. I cannot give you my name, not yet, but I wanted you to know. You are not as alone as you think you are. With deepest admiration, your secret friend." James read it 3 times, then a 4th. His heart, that muscle he'd trained to be hard as Montana stone, suddenly felt like it might crack wide open. Nobody had written him a letter in. He couldn't remember how long. His parents were dead. He had no siblings. The only mail he got were bills and cattle auction notices. But this was different. Someone saw him. Really saw him. Not as the wealthy rancher James Blackwood, not as the boss who paid fair wages and expected hard work, but as a man. A lonely man who maybe, just maybe, still had a heart that could hope. He folded the letter carefully, slipped it into his shirt pocket, right over that hopeful heart. And for the first time in years, James Blackwood smiled as he rode toward town. He had business at the general store, supplies to pick up, the same errand he ran every week. But today, everything felt different. Today, he was a man with a secret. Today, someone out there was thinking of him. The question was, who? Copper Ridge, Montana wasn't much to look at. 1 main street, a dozen buildings, the kind of town where everyone knew everyone else's business, or thought they did. The general store sat right in the heart of it all, Morrison's Mercantile. Though everyone knew that old Albert Morrison had been dead for 3 years, the store was really run by his daughter, Eliza Jane Morrison, 34 years old, unmarried. Unremarkable, most folks said, but most folks were fools. James pushed open the door to Morrison's Mercantile just after 9 in the morning. The familiar smell of coffee, leather, and dried goods welcomed him. Behind the counter stood Eliza Morrison, just like always, her dark hair pulled back in a simple bun, her dress a practical gray wool. No frills, no fuss. "Morning, Mr. Blackwood," she said softly. Her voice was like honey, smooth and sweet, but nobody seemed to notice. They never really listened to Eliza. "Miss Morrison." James touched the brim of his hat. "Need to pick up my usual order." "Already have it packed for you," she replied, gesturing to 3 large crates near the door. "I saw you coming up the street." Of course she did. Eliza's living quarters were above the store, a small apartment with a window that looked right down Main Street. A window where she spent her evenings reading. A window where every morning at dawn she watched a certain rancher ride past. James approached the counter to settle his bill. That's when he noticed Eliza's hands. They were stained with ink, blue ink, the same shade as the ribbon on his letter. His breath caught. "You all right, Mr. Blackwood?" Eliza asked, her gray eyes meeting his for just a moment before looking away. Those eyes. How had he never noticed they were the color of storm clouds? Beautiful storm clouds. "Fine," he managed. "Just—" "Miss Morrison, you do a lot of writing?" She blinked, clearly surprised by the question. I keep the store ledgers, and I write letters for folks in town who can't write themselves. Mrs. Chen asks me to write to her sister in San Francisco once a month, and old Mr. Kowalski needs help with his correspondence. Why do you ask?" "No reason." But James couldn't stop staring at those ink-stained fingers. Could it be? Could Eliza Morrison, the quiet woman he'd barely noticed in 15 years, be his secret admirer? He tried to remember if he'd ever really looked at her, talked to her beyond the simple exchange of commerce. The answer shamed him. Number. He hadn't. Eliza Morrison was just there, part of the scenery, like the counter she stood behind, like the shelves she kept stocked. He took her for granted the way he took air for granted. But someone who wrote like that, someone who saw into his lonely soul and took the time to reach out, that person was extraordinary. "Your total comes to $12.40, Eliza said, her voice bringing him back to the present. James paid. Their fingers brushed as he handed her the money. For just a second, her eyes met his again. And in those gray depths, he saw something he'd never looked for before: intelligence, kindness, and something else. Loneliness that mirrored his own. "Thank you, Miss Morrison," he said quietly, "for everything." She smiled, a small, uncertain smile that transformed her plain face into something else entirely, something beautiful. "You're welcome, Mr. Blackwood. Same time next week." "Yes, ma'am." As James loaded his supplies onto his wagon, his mind spun like a dust devil. Could it really be Eliza, the woman he'd overlooked for 15 years? But doubt crept in like a thief. Why would someone like her notice someone like him? He was rough, uneducated beyond basic reading and numbers. He'd built his ranch with his hands, not his mind. What could he possibly offer a woman who wrote like poetry? James climbed onto his wagon seat and clicked his tongue at his horses. Behind him, in the window above the store, Eliza Morrison watched him go. And, in her hand, she held a pale blue ribbon. The letters came every 3 days. Always at dawn, always tied to James Blackwood's ranch gate with that same pale blue ribbon, always unsigned. February 6th. The second letter. "Dear Mr. Blackwood, today I watched you help old Mrs. Kowalski carry her groceries to her wagon. You didn't have to. You were clearly in a hurry, but you stopped. You smiled at her. You treated her with dignity. Do you know how rare that is? How precious? In this world, most men measure their worth in dollars and acres, but you measure yours in kindness. That makes you richer than you know. Still thinking of you. Your secret friend." February 9th. The third letter. "Dear Mr. Blackwood, I wonder if you feel the winter the way I do. Not just the cold, but the loneliness of it. The way the snow muffles everything, making the world feel empty and far away. But then I remember, even in the deepest winter, spring is waiting. Seeds sleep beneath the frozen ground, dreaming of sunshine. Maybe we are like those seeds, you and I. waiting for the right moment to bloom. With hope, your secret friend. James kept every letter. He read them by lamplight in the evenings, read them until he had them memorized, read them until the paper grew soft from his calloused hands. He'd never been a man of words, never understood poetry or fancy talk. But these letters, they spoke to something deep inside him, something he thought had died long ago. Hope. Each week, when he went to town for supplies, he found himself studying Eliza Morrison, really seeing her for the first time, the way she tucked a stray hair behind her ear when she was thinking, the way she bit her bottom lip while calculating figures in the ledger, the way her entire face lit up when young Timothy Watson came in with his penny to buy a peppermint stick, and she always gave him two. She was kind, thoughtful, patient with the difficult customers, generous with those who struggled. And those eyes. Lord, those gray eyes haunted his dreams. But doubt still plagued him. What if he was wrong? What if the letters weren't from Eliza? What if he revealed his feelings and made a fool of himself? Worse, what if he ruined whatever friendship they had? So James said nothing. Week after week, he came to the store, bought his supplies, made polite conversation, and never spoke the words burning in his heart. Is it you? Are you the one who sees me? The one who writes words that make my soul sing? February 12th, the fourth letter. Dear Mr. Blackwood, Valentine's Day approaches, a day for lovers and sweethearts, a day that has always made me feel invisible. But this year feels different. This year, I've found courage I didn't know I had, the courage to reach out, to tell someone they matter. You matter, James Blackwood, more than you know. I cannot hide forever. Soon, I will have to find the courage to step from the shadows, to risk everything. The question is, will you see me when I do? Yours in hope and fear, your secret friend. James read that letter 17 times. She'd used his first name, James. Not Mr. Blackwood, James. And she'd said she was afraid. This woman who'd given him so much comfort was herself afraid, vulnerable, human. He had to know, had to be sure. The next morning, James did something he'd never done before. Instead of riding straight past Morrison's mercantile on his way out of town, he stopped. Horse hooves stop, saddle creaks. He dismounted, tied his horse, and stood outside the store, gathering courage. Through the window, he could see Eliza sweeping the floor. It was early. The store wasn't open yet. She was alone. Now or never. James pushed open the door. Eliza looked up, startled. Mr. Blackwood, I'm not open for another— I need to ask you something. He interrupted, his heart hammered like a blacksmith's anvil. And I need you to be honest with me. She set down the broom slowly. Of course. The letters, James said. The ones left at my gate. The ones with the blue ribbon. Eliza's face went pale. Her hands trembled. Is it you? James asked softly. Are you my secret Valentine? Time stopped. In that small general store with the morning sun just beginning to paint the floor golden, Eliza Jane Morrison faced the moment she'd been dreading and dreaming of in equal measure. Her voice failed her. She swallowed hard, tried again. I don't— Why would you think? But the tears in her eyes told the truth her mouth couldn't speak. James took a step closer. The ink on your fingers, the blue ribbon, the way you write letters for folks in town. And— He paused, his voice growing soft. The way those letters knew things, saw things, like how I helped Mrs. Kowalski. You were watching from your window, weren't you? A single tear rolled down Eliza's cheek. I'm sorry, she whispered. I shouldn't have. I know I'm not the kind of woman a man like you would ever— She turned away, unable to face him. I'll stop. I promise I'll stop. Please just forget— Eliza. He'd never said her name before, not her first name, and hearing it in his deep voice stopped her breath. Look at me, James said gently. Please. Slowly she turned. Her gray eyes were swimming with tears. 15 years of invisible longing. 15 years of watching this man and believing she'd never be seen. James crossed the distance between them in 3 strides. I'm the one who should apologize, he said, his voice rough with emotion. 15 years I've walked into this store. 15 years you've been right here, And I was too blind, too stupid, too caught up in my own loneliness to see what was right in front of me. Mr. Blackwood. James, he interrupted. You called me James in your letter. Don't stop now. James, she breathed. I never expected. I only wanted you to know that someone saw you, that someone cared. I never thought you'd actually try to find out who. I'm nobody. I'm plain. I'm boring. You're the woman who sees into my soul, James interrupted. You're the woman with words that make poetry out of this hard life. You're the woman I've been too much of a fool to notice. He reached up slowly, carefully, and wiped the tear from her cheek with his thumb. Those letters saved me, he said quietly. I didn't even know how lost I was until your words found me. You gave me something I thought I'd never have again. What? Eliza whispered. Hope. Eliza's sob broke the silence. Years of loneliness, of watching from windows, of loving someone from afar, all came pouring out. And James Blackwood, the hardened rancher who never showed emotion, pulled her into his arms and held her while she wept. I see you now, he murmured into her hair. Lord help me, Eliza Morrison, I see you now. And you're the most beautiful thing I've ever laid eyes on. She pulled back just enough to look up at him. I'm not beautiful, You are to me, he said firmly. Your kindness is beautiful. Your words are beautiful. Your heart is beautiful. And those eyes. He smiled, a real smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. Those gray eyes are like Montana storm clouds, and I finally understand why I've always loved the rain. Eliza laughed through her tears. That's terrible poetry. I know, James admitted. I'm not good with words like you are, but I mean every one of them. What happens now? She asked, her voice small and uncertain. James took both of her hands in his. Those ink-stained, elegant hands that had written words powerful enough to heal a broken heart. Now, he said, now I court you proper. I take you to dinner. I bring you flowers. I tell everyone in Copper Ridge that Eliza Morrison is spoken for. And if you'll have me, if someone as extraordinary as you could ever want a rough man like me, maybe someday I ask you to be my wife. James, Eliza whispered, I've loved you for 15 years. I've watched you and admired you and wished for you from my window, like a girl wishing on a star she could never reach. I'm not a star, James said softly. I'm just a man, a lucky, blessed man who finally opened his eyes. So yes, Eliza said, her smile breaking through like sunshine after a storm. Yes to dinner, yes to flowers, yes to being courted, and yes, her voice trembled, someday, yes to being your wife. James kissed her then. Right there in Morrison's Mercantile, with the morning sun streaming through the windows and dust motes dancing in the golden light. It was a kiss 15 years in the making, a kiss between two lonely souls who finally found their way home. News traveled fast in a small town. By noon, everyone in Copper Ridge knew that James Blackwood was courting Eliza Morrison, and the town's reaction was mixed. Some folks were surprised. James Blackwood and plain Eliza Morrison? Who would have thought? Others were happy. Both were good people. Both were lonely. Why shouldn't they find comfort in each other? But the busybodies, oh, they had opinions. She's after his money, Mrs. Fletcher whispered at the dress shop. He's settled for less, Mr. Thornton said at the saloon. Man like that could have his pick. But James and Eliza didn't care. For the first time in their lives, they'd found someone who truly saw them. Money and looks and what other people thought. None of that mattered. Valentine's Day, 1883, fell on a Wednesday. The town had planned a dance at the church hall. James, who hadn't attended a social event in 5 years, asked Eliza to be his partner. That evening, when James arrived at the store to collect Eliza, he stopped dead in his tracks. She wore a dress the color of blue ribbons. Her dark hair was arranged with small white flowers, and when she smiled at him, nervous and hopeful and beautiful, James felt like the richest man in Montana. You're stunning, he breathed. Eliza blushed. It's just an old dress I fixed up. You're stunning, he repeated, offering his arm. And I'm the luckiest man alive. The church hall was decorated with paper hearts and candles. The fiddle players were already warming up. Couples filled the dance floor. When James and Eliza entered, conversation stopped. Every eye in the room turned to them. James felt Eliza tense beside him, felt her start to retreat, to pull back into the shadows where she'd lived for so long. No, not anymore. He placed his hand over hers on his arm, squeezed gently, and walked her right into the center of the room, head high, proud as could be. "May I have this dance, Miss Morrison?" he asked, loud enough for everyone to hear. Eliza's smile was tremulous but real. "I'd be honored, Mr. Blackwood." They danced, and as they turned around the floor, something magical happened. Other couples started to smile. Mrs. Chen clapped her hands together in delight. Old Mr. Kowalski raised his glass in salute. Even the busybodies had to admit, James and Eliza looked like they belonged together, like two pieces of a puzzle finally finding their fit. "What are you thinking?" Eliza asked as they swayed to the music. James looked down at her. "I'm thinking about how I almost missed this. How I almost let you slip away because I was too blind to see what was right in front of me." "But you did see," Eliza said softly. "Eventually. That's what matters." "I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you know you're seen," James promised. "Every single day, Eliza Morrison, I'm going to remind you that you're extraordinary." Tears sparkled in her eyes. "And I'm going to spend the rest of my life reminding you that you're worthy of love." As the dance ended, James pulled Eliza close. "I love you," he whispered. "I know it's fast. I know we're just beginning. But I've wasted enough time. I love you, Eliza." "I love you too," she whispered back. "I have for 15 years, and I'll love you for 15 more, and 15 more after that." In the warm glow of candlelight, in a small Montana town, two lonely hearts finally found their home. Not because they were perfect, but because they were perfect for each other. February 14th, 1884, Valentine's Day. The Blackwood ranch house was different now. Curtains in the windows, flowers in vases, the smell of fresh bread baking, and laughter. After 15 years of silence, the house rang with laughter. Eliza Blackwood, she'd taken her husband's name in June, stood at the kitchen window, watching the sunrise paint the Montana sky in shades of pink and gold. A year ago, she'd been alone, invisible, convinced she'd spend her life watching other people's happiness from her window above the store. Now she was loved. Strong arms wrapped around her waist from behind. James rested his chin on her shoulder. "Happy Valentine's Day, Mrs. Blackwood," he murmured. Eliza leaned back against him. "Happy Valentine's Day, Mr. Blackwood." "I have something for you," James said. He pulled a letter from his pocket, handed it to her. Eliza unfolded it carefully, and her eyes filled with tears, because there, in James's careful, unpracticed handwriting, he'd been learning, practicing every night, was a letter. "Dear Eliza, you taught me to see. Not just you, though Lord knows you're worth seeing, but to see the world different, to see beauty in ordinary things, to see hope where I thought there was none. You saved me, not with grand gestures, but with simple kindness, with words that healed, with love that asked for nothing, but gave everything. I'm not good at writing like you are. These words are clumsy, but they're true. I love you. I see you. And every morning for the rest of my life, I'm going to thank God that you were brave enough to leave letters on my gate. Yours forever, James." Eliza turned in her husband's arms, looked up at the face she'd loved from afar for so long, the face she now got to kiss goodnight every evening and good morning every dawn. "It's beautiful," she whispered. "It's true," James replied. They stood there in the growing light, two people who'd almost missed their chance. Two people who'd been lonely in the same small town for years, never knowing the cure for their loneliness was right there all along. "Do you ever wonder," Eliza asked quietly, "what would have happened if I hadn't written those letters? If I'd been too afraid?" James considered. "I think we would have found each other eventually. Maybe not when we did, maybe years from now. But souls like ours." He kissed her forehead. "They're meant to find each other, one way or another." "I like that thought," Eliza said. "Me too." Outside, the sun rose over the Montana plains. Inside, two hearts beat as one, because love doesn't always announce itself with thunder and lightning. Sometimes it comes quietly, tied with a blue ribbon, written in careful handwriting, left on a gate for a lonely man to find. Sometimes the greatest love stories are the ones that almost never happened, the ones that required courage, faith, and the willingness to see what was there all along. This was the story of James and Eliza Blackwood, the rancher and the shopkeeper, the man who couldn't see, and the woman who taught him how. May we all be so lucky to find someone who sees us, and may we all be brave enough to let ourselves be found. Thank you for journeying with me through this tale of the Old West, where hearts were as vast as the territory, and love could bloom even in the harshest winter. If this story touched your heart, please give it a like and share it with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late for love, never too late to be seen. Subscribe to this channel for more Wild West love stories, tales of hope, courage, and second chances. Stories that remind us that the best things in life are often the simplest. A kind word, a loving heart, a letter tied with ribbon. Next week, we'll travel to Texas for a story of redemption called The Outlaw's Last Redemption. You won't want to miss it. Until then, may you see and be seen. May you love and be loved. And may your heart always find its home